mess up now, okay? I tell myself that too. All right, so section 7.7. We just did the review. So we need to talk about solving right triangles today. Solving right triangles. And this is something you probably haven't heard yet. So far we've been finding all the sides, right? Like in this problem we found the two sides. In 7.7 we're going to find everything. So that means we're going to solve for all the angles and all the sides. So solving a right triangle means to find the measure of all its angles and sides. Find all its angles and sides. Mackenzie, how many sides does the triangle have? 3. How many angles does it have? 3. So how many total things do we need? 6. So there are 6 total items. So when you're finished with these, you should have 6 different items, okay? 3 sides and 3 angles. All right? It is possible to solve a right triangle. Not all of them are possible, and that's something you'll talk about in pre-calc, but we're not going to deal with it a whole lot. All the ones I give you, you can solve. But you can solve a right triangle if you have 2 sides. So if I give you 2 different sides, you can find all the other pieces. Or you can solve it if I give you 1 side and 1 angle. So you can solve it if I give you either 2 sides or 1 side and 1 angle in the same triangle. And remember, these are always for right triangles, so there's an extra piece of information right there. So I've given you 2 sides and then 1 right angle, so that's actually 3 pieces of information. 1, 1, and then the right, so that's actually 3 again. So you have to start with 3, which means you have to find the other 3. Okay? Before we do that, we've got to talk about inverse trig. So far we found all the sides, all right? We want to use the inverse trig ratios when we want to find angles, and this is very important. We want to find the angles. So inverse angles, okay? We use the inverse trig ratios when we want to find the angles. And that's the part that is a little mysterious today. It's going to get a little strange. Let me know when you look up when you're finished. Any questions thus far? Okay. The first one we're going to talk about is the tangent. So if I had the tangent of angle A equals, and I knew it equaled some number. Let's say I knew that it equaled 0.31. Just made that up, okay? And I wanted to find angle A, because now we're trying to find the angles. Notice over here we tried to find the sides, right? Now I want to find the angles. So if I know that the tangent of angle A is equal to some number, I use the inverse. And when you take the inverse, we can't divide by tangent because these two go together, right? We can't get the angle A by itself because this is a function and they belong together. So what we do is we use the inverse. And this may seem a bit strange right now, okay? So we want angle A by itself. And to do that, we take the inverse, which we write as tan to the negative first power. Now, we don't say to the negative first power, that's just how we write it. When you see that, you want to say inverse tangent. So let me write that. So when you say it, you want to say inverse tangent. And then whatever was on the right side by itself now moves into your parentheses. So this becomes 0.31. So you notice how we started with tangent of angle A, and we ended up with the inverse tangent of 0.31. Do you see how those kind of switch their spots? The angle A is now by itself, and the 0.31 is now in parentheses. So do you see that at all? Am I making this up? Okay, let's continue on, and then we'll come back to it if there's still questions. Okay. So if I do the sine of angle B is equal to 0.78. Could you guys complete that if I wanted to find angle B? What would it look like? Julio? Angle B this time. Inverse sine, and I write that with the -1. So sine, or the inverse sine of, what moves into your parentheses then? 0.78. Okay, I know these can seem a bit magical right now. Stephanie, still with me? Can you do the last one? If I give you cosine of angle C is equal to 0.63, what would it become? Good. Of? Perfect. Mario, pay attention, all right? Going to check that calculator. Okay? So this is how we set these up. Now take a look at your calculators. Can you find this button anywhere? Where?
It's the same button.
It's the same button. How do you get to it? The second. So you see it right above tangent. So if everybody hit second tangent, and you should come up with the -1 there. And then I want you to type in 0.31. So that says that angle A then is 17.22 degrees because it's an angle, and we set the calculator to degree mode. All right? Do the other two real quickly. You should. 1 or 2 decimals is fine. Okay, can you help? Mario, do you have the second one done? Yeah. What'd you get? 51.26 degrees. And the last one would be angle C equals, who's got it? 50.95? Anybody get anything different than those? If you had the last decimal different, that's okay. You okay? So notice how we found the angles here. So this is when we need to find angles. Oh, sorry. So now we need to find the measure of angle A. We're going to do the same process as what we did, but now we're going to find the angle instead of the side. So just like we did before, I want you to highlight the angle A. So highlight it. Highlight it. Highlight angle A, and I want you to label your side as, what are my 3 options? Ryan, what are my 3 options that we can label them as? And? Good. So label these 3 as either opposite, hypotenuse, or adjacent. Mario, which one's the 15 going to be? What does adjacent mean in English? So if we're adjacent, what does this mean? Yeah, and if we're on opposite sides of the room, what does that mean? So is that close or far? If we're on opposite sides of the room,
Oh, and this one.
Yeah. Far. So opposite means the furthest away. So 15 is going to be your furthest one away. It's opposite. Which one's hypotenuse? Use your letters, please. Thank you. And then this one is the adjacent. Okay? So first step is to do that. Next we can solve our chief. How do I spell it? Gustavo? S-CAH-TOA. Which two numbers have I been given? 15 and 20, and those are the opposite and the... Which one of my functions has the opposite and the adjacent? TOA. So we're going to use the tangent function here. Does that make sense how I chose the tangent? So I choose the tangent, and remember this is always going to be an angle. Well, what's my angle? Do we know what it is here? So what should I put in there? Angle A. So the tangent of angle A is equal to what over what? Mackenzie? What over what? 15 over 20. Very good. Now, notice that this is very different from what we had last time. Last time, notice how we needed to find the side. This time, we need to find the angle. When we need to find the angle, we use what? The inverse. So how would I set this up then? How would I set this up? So use the inverse. You could simplify it. You could also just leave it. That's fine. Khalil, back awake. What would you use here? What would this become? Just like with what we did on this last page. I'm sorry, say it again. Yep, so what's the whole line going to read? So just like we switched here, we moved from this piece, we took the inverse. Can you tell me what the line's going to read for us? I can't hear you. Okay. Test. Except what do you call that? What is this called? It's not tan negative 1. What do we name it?
Oh.
Inverse tangent. Okay. Of? Over. Good. Use your calculator. Use your calculator. Inverse tangent of 15 over 20. Are you sure you get something that seems fairly reasonable? So if in your parentheses you can divide it. You can divide it either before you plug it in, or you can simply plug it in like this. Does not matter. Make sure you're closing your parentheses too. Luis, you got what? 36 point what? 86 degrees? Everybody get that? Alright, does this make sense how we're doing these? Alright. Work with a partner. I want you to find... Oh, sorry. So this one's a little trickier. We have 2 here. So we have both D and F. It's just like when we had 2 variables before. Highlight one, do it first, then highlight the other and do the second one. Does that make sense? So highlight the angle D, label them, then highlight angle F, label them. You're going to do it twice. Can you guys start working on this one with a partner or by yourself? All right. About 3 minutes. This is a quiet day. Long weekend. Somebody want to do this on the board with us? one do you want to do first? D or F? Okay, I like D. Now, that looks good. Consult SOH-CAH-TOA. Which two do we have? And? So which one are we using? Yep. Yep. So which one do you want to do first? Then D or equal F? So then look at what we have. What is that? And which other number do you have? So which one are you going to choose from SOH-CAH-TOA? Okay, so keep that open. Right side. Right. No. Oh, fine. Real. One. Okay, good. And oh wait, how does this switch? It's not going to be the same. Can you try and find your mistake? I'll be right back. Yeah. One more minute, and then we're going to see how it looks like people are getting a little stuck. So pick one first, D or F. Okay, highlight it. Label your other sides. Label one that's opposite adjacent hypotenuse. Depends on which one you're looking at. You're looking at F or G. So, a lot of people, let's bring this back together. A lot of people are getting confused because there's two of them. Alright? I probably should have gotten you started. That's my fault. Alright? There's two of them. Do one of them at a time, okay? So let's choose F first. When we do F, I need to highlight F and label my sides. You guys are all pretty good at that by now, right? So what's the 3 going to be if I'm looking at F? Whoa. All right. What's the 9? Nope. Why, Louise? Good. So this one must be your adjacent. Remember SOH-CAH-TOA? Remember SOH-CAH-TOA? Which two pieces do I have here? Opposite and hypotenuse. So which one am I going to use? Opposite and... Does this have opposite and hypotenuse, please? It does? Sine. Good. So we're going to use the sine. Mackenzie, set that up for me then. It's going to be sine of what? Sine of angle F equals 3 over 9. How do I use the inverse then? Yep. Good. Of. Perfect. Can you plug that in your calculator then? Have you isolated your unknown? That seems about right. 19 point what?
47.
Does that look, is it acute? F? Is this acute? Yeah, so it seems okay. It's pretty small too. Now, the part that people got confused on, was that okay if we did it by itself? You guys are okay with that, right?
Yep.
The part you guys got confused on is what to do when there were 2. When there's 2, you just start the process over. So I'm going to use a different color. I don't know if you guys can do that. But I'm going to use green now. It is always the biggest, yes. Are you asking about this number? This is an angle, remember. So this angle is right here. It's 19.47. Sides are different from angles. Okay? Good question, though. So when we do angle D now, our sides are going to change, right? So what is the opposite now? It's adjacent. Do you see why it's important to highlight your angles so it becomes a little more obvious? Luis, the EF is going to be opposite. And Julio, The 9 is? Thank you. So now, look at what you have. Do you still have the opposite and the hypotenuse?
Yep.
You do? We have the adjacent. You see how we're looking at the green ones now? So notice that it changes based on which angle we're looking at. Okay? So, which one is adjacent and hypotenuse then? Cosine? Khalil, set it up. Angle D. 3/9. So notice the numbers are the same, but what changed was we had the sine first, now we have the cosine. The inverse, Mario, what's going to read? Equals? What's that called? Do you remember? It's called the inverse cosine. So inverse cosine of 3/9. Tell me what you get. 70.52. Okay, what I want you to do right now? How many degrees are there total in a triangle? There are 3 angles. The degrees all add up to what though? 180. I want you to add up angle D plus angle F plus the last one. What's that last one going to be? 90. Add up those 3. So add up D plus F plus 90. $179.99. So is that good or no?
I mean, if you round it, it's 180.
So why is it not exactly 180?
I got one.
You got exactly 180?
Yeah.
Because I got 70.53.
The issue is we rounded here, right?
Yeah.
So we rounded here. So if you get something like 179.99, that's close enough to 180 to say we nailed it. Okay, so with these problems, a lot of times you can often check your work. Okay, does that make sense? You guys are good at this. We're not going to do this. How would you, if you wanted to find angle A, you just take the inverse of the other side, right? We did that a little bit before. All right, solving the right triangle. Last topic for today. Solving the right triangle. So there are how many different things we need to find about a triangle? How many sides are there? How many angles? So how many total? And I've given you 3 pieces. I've given you an angle, I've given you a side, and I've also given you the right angle, okay? So we need to find 3 other ones. We need to find, let's list them. We need to find the length of RT, RS, and we have ST, angle T. So we need to find RT, RS, and then the angle T. Now, to do these, we have to do 3 separate problems. Does not matter which order we really do them in. What would you guys like to find first? Anybody? The sides? Okay. Would it help if you put an X and a Y in there for you? Would that be helpful? Would you prefer that? Okay. I'll call this X, and I'll call this Y. X and Y. We're going to use 57 because it's the angle we know, right? Sorry, it's going to get a little crowded up here. So highlight it again. What's my next step? What do I do after that? Label the sides. What's this going to be? Ryan, what's the X? And the Y, Moshi? Hypotenuse. Very good. Which would you like to find first, the X or the Y? X. So X, we have what and what? We have the adjacent and opposite. Which one uses the adjacent and opposite? Remember, if you don't have it memorized, just write it down. On your tests and your quizzes, please just put that at the top. I don't care. All right, first thing you do, write SOH-CAH-TOA down so you don't forget. So we have the adjacent and the opposite. So we have adjacent, opposite, so it's going to be TOA. Does that make sense? Am I going too fast or too slow?
No.
Okay. Leslie set it up for me. So tangent of what? Do we know what angle R is?
No.
Angle R? Thank you. 57 degrees equals what over what?
15 over X.
Leslie, what do you think? So we're using the tangent. So it's going to be what over what? So what's it going to be with the picture then? Good. 15 over x. Guys, very important question right here. Am I going to use the inverse function right here? Why not? Because we're not finding an angle. That was what I wanted you guys to get a few slides back. Remember, only if I have to find the angle do I need to use the inverse. But here I already have it. Okay, so I don't need to use it. How do I solve this? Put it over 1 and then cross multiply. I'm going to do this real quickly. So x is equal to 15 over tangent of 57. Can you plug that in for me, please? Sorry, I skipped some steps in the first time. Yeah, looks about right. Can somebody else do that to confirm our answer? 9.74, that sounds good. So x is 9.74. X is which side? So this is 9.74. Now, to find RT, there are two ways we can actually do this now. One is we can use our triangle and our trig, right? Just like we did with the sine and the cosine. The other way is, how many sides do I have here now? 2. What was the first thing we learned in this chapter? Pythagorean theorem, and that works for what type of triangle? Right. Do I have a right triangle? Do I have 2 sides? Can I find the third one then? Yeah. So you can use either trig, or you can use the Pythagorean theorem. Which one do you guys like to use? Trig? Wow. All right. So, looking at 57, we want to find y. So which 2 numbers do I have then? A hint, always use the numbers I've given you. Let's say I messed up to find this number. Let's say I typed it in wrong. If I messed up this number and then I used it again, that next answer is going to be wrong too. Does that make sense? So you kind of just keep hurting yourself. So when you're given the chance, always use the numbers I've given. So who can set up the other one for y for me? Who can set up for y? A bunch of you are doing it. You just don't like telling me. Nobody can set it up? How do we set this one up? How do we set this one up? What do? We looked at the angle, we labeled our sides, and then we found out which one it was going to be, right? Can we do the same thing for y? You guys alive?
Yeah.
Y sine. Yeah. So she's still looking at the 57, right? Sine is opposite, and we want to find the y, right? Hypotenuse. So stay with me. So the sine is the opposite in the hypotenuse. So what would that set up then? If she told you it's sine, someone else set it up. Jasmine? Of? Angle which one? Is y an angle?
No.
57 degrees. Because remember, see how it's highlighted? Over. Okay, I'm going to skip a few steps. Y is going to be 15 over sine of 57. Plug that into the calculator, and y equals, what is it? 12? 17.88. Julio, I'm not sure where your mistake is. Look at your number, though. You got 12. Your hypotenuse always has to be, is that bigger than 15? No, so you can always, you know if it's going to be wrong sometimes, okay? So this is y, which is this side, RT. So this is 17.88. 17.88. Any questions on that? What's the last thing we need to find? Anybody know how I could find angle T? Certainly, we could use the inverse trig with angle T. There's an easier way, though. There's a super easy way. Yeah. How many degrees are there in the triangle? 180. If I was giving you two of them, can you figure out the third one? So it's 180 minus, well, you have to figure out what 90 plus 57 is. What's 90 plus 57? 147. And then you just do 180 for the whole triangle minus 147, which is what you've already used. And you get what? 33. 33 what? Degrees. So angle T is 33 degrees. And then we have everything. We have all the sides, all the angles, right? They're long. They're long. Think of it one step at a time, though. 3 separate things, do it one step at a time. Okay? I know that it can be tricky. I'm not exactly sure what time the bell's going to ring, because I didn't really hear part of that. I'm pretty sure it's at 10:08, so we're getting close to the end. Your quiz for tomorrow, what we're going to do is we're going to do it near the end of the class. So we're going to start class, and we're going to do a bunch of review problems on problems like this. I can't push the test back at all, because you guys work Monday and Tuesday next week. So I can't push it back, because then you'd have Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then take it on Wednesday. So I think that would be not so good for you guys. So the test is still going to be on Friday. We'll cover as much as we can on Thursday. I do want to have some time for review. And if that means we have to do the test and then fill in this last section afterwards, then we'll just have to do that, okay? Does that make sense? So, yeah. So, let's, yeah. Tell you what, for the quiz tomorrow, you don't need to know how to solve right triangles. You do not need to know how to solve right triangles. We'll cover that tomorrow. Okay? However, you do need to know how to find the inverse of an angle. So if I ask you to find an angle, I want you to find that, okay? And unfortunately, we just didn't get through as much as we needed to today, okay? So the quiz should be very fair. So I'll tell you there's going to be three problems. First problem's on tangent. Second problem is sine and cosine. And then the third problem is going to be one of the inverses. All right? So tangent, sine and cosine, so SOH-CAH-TOA. And then the last one is going to be finding some inverses. Okay? Your homework for tonight, which you definitely need to do. Let me check, just because we just changed it a little bit. Is 3, 5, 7, 8. 3, 5, 7, 8. Okay? And then we'll talk about the rest of them when we meet tomorrow. What this means is we're not going to have too much time for review tomorrow. So I encourage you to start studying tonight for your test, and then come prepared with any questions that you may have for tomorrow. Does that make sense? Are there any questions before we depart? When do I use the inverse function? When I need to find the angle. How do I write it? What does it look like? How do I write it? What do I add to it? -1. What does your calculator always have to be in? degree mode. What else did we learn today? What does solving a right triangle mean?
Finding all the 6 parts.
Finding all 6 parts. How many parts do I have to give to you?
3.
3. So that means how many do you have to find?
3.
What can we always use that we've learned before? So what are 2 topics we've referred to before that we use today? Pythagorean theorem and we used something else today that we learned a long time ago.
Oh, that's the triangle 180.
Yeah, using this problem. The triangle is how many degrees?
180.
180. Okay, so remember when we solve right triangles, both of those are going to be very helpful. Right? You can use calculators for the quiz and test. The one caveat, that means exception, if I ask for it in simplified radical form, so let's say I have square root of 54, and I ask for it in square radical form, you would have to break this up into square root of 9 times the square root of 6, and then what's the square root of 9? So it would be 3 square root of 6. So if I say simplified radical form, I expect a radical. If I say express it as a decimal, then you can plug that into a calculator. Okay? Does that make sense, sir? Adios. We'll talk about the test more tomorrow, but be ready for your quiz. The homework's up here again. Thank you. Leave your calculators on your desk, please. Sorry. Leave them on your desk, please. Sir.